Today I am going to try something I haven't really tried before. I am going to bind these signatures into 3 different nature journals, and I'm going to use, I have 2 different bindings that I want to use. One is the tried and true 3-hole pamphlet stitch, but I want to include a twig on the binding here. And I found these in my yard, and aren't they beautiful? And the other one is a different kind of a binding that's a little more complex. But I have some twine, I have some sticks, and I am gonna finally put these signatures, I'm just gonna bind it into 3 journals, I think. I always thought that I'd put these all together, but I have dyed these papers using distress inks and acrylic paint and a stencil, and I unfortunately don't have a video for that, but maybe I will try it again in the near future because these are beautiful and they're all different. Ooh, that one is probably gonna have to get glued down there at some point. This is just a very, I think this is really, I think it's a packing paper. I made these a couple of years ago. I think this is like just a really light tissue paper, like you'd get plates or something wrapped in. But a lot of these are paper bags, and just, they came out so beautifully. I might try them again, but I'm excited. I want to make these into a nature journal where I can put leaves and things, or impressions of leaves, and they're so beautiful. I want to keep it pretty natural and simple. So I'm gonna like bind these with these twigs, which are beautiful twigs. I picked these up in my yard last week, and what I was looking for is some that are relatively straight. I'm gonna have to cut them down to the size of a journal, I think, but I think they're gonna add a lot of really just fun detail to these. So come along and see how it goes. I haven't tried this before. The other one is if you punch holes along here, then you can use like a blanket stitch to stitch this together. But let's start with the 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So for the first binding, I'm just going to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. And then is what I want to do is I want to attach the twig through those 3 holes. So I have my awl, and I'm just going to poke into the center of here. And I'm not measuring this or anything, it's just going to be approximate. And then somewhere up here, and I might go a little bit down from, usually it's about 1 inch from the top, and I'm gonna put it about 1.5 inches probably from the top, and poke this other one. And then about the same distance, just by eyeball, I'm gonna go here, and I am trying to be careful and make sure that I'm getting it right through the center. And that's why I'm closing this. It just kind of allows it to punch through right there. And there you have that. So I have my holes punched, and this is going to be really easy because it's just one, and I'm not attaching a cover or anything. This is just going to be one kind of loose bound signature. So I had originally thought that I was going to count that out. I'm going to do 2.5 or 3 lengths of your book, and I'm just counting the length of the book from the holes here. And this should give me plenty to do my 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I was originally, I had the 3 signatures and I thought I would put a cover on it and bind it together, maybe with like a wooden cover. But then I came up with this idea and I wanted to try the twigs, and I kind of changed my mind. Let me find, I might have one right here. I'm gonna need something with a really big needle for this, and I don't know if this is gonna be it. It might work. It might work. Okay. I'm gonna start on the outside of this so that I have a place to tie on the twig. So for this, I'm just going to take this pamphlet stitch and I'm going to do the pamphlet stitch first, and then I'm going to go back and attach the twig. And I'll have to sew in some thread at the top and the bottom, but I should be able to use this. This twine is going to be a little bit of a challenge to do this, but it's happening. Okay. And I'm going to leave a pretty long tail on the outside, and that'll leave my, where you usually tie the journal together, and I usually do it on the inside. You don't have to. You can certainly leave it on the outside, and today I'm doing that because I have my idea. This twine is very bulky, but I thought it would give it kind of that natural outdoor kind of a feel, so I am going to just stick with it and make this happen. Oh, that went in so easy. Okay, hopefully it's in the center now. If I can find it. I could have clipped these together and be easier, but maybe for the next one. The next one we won't have to do this. Finding the center. It's just got that big, bulky, doubled up twine. Doesn't quite want to come all the way through. If you had used like a hole punch to do this, it'd be a little bit easier to get this to work. There we go. We've got it. We've got it. Okay. There's that. And now we can put this through here. So, if you've done a 3-hole pamphlet stitch before, I'm just going to tighten that up. Let's make sure it's tight on the top and the bottom on the inside. Where are you? I'm going to put a clip on this just at the very end. Brilliant. Like it. Love it. I think that is good enough. I'm going to go ahead and tie this off like that. So now I have my signature is bound, and we could leave it like this because it is done. But now I want to attach my twig. So I think to attach this first twig is what I want to do. Is what I've done is I found this is the straightest twig I think that I have, and it's pretty straight, and I think I can attach it from here to here. I'm just going to attach here. We can just tie it off with this, but here we're going to have to add some twine, and I think the way that we're going to do it is we're going to come out through the center and then go around the twig a couple times, go back into the hole, and then tie it off on the inside. And that should attach this twig on the inside. So we'll have a little bit of a knot on the inside, at the top and the bottom, and the knot here will be here. And I am going to, because I want to wrap this around, and it's just going to be easier to do now while the twig is unattached at the top and the bottom. And hopefully that might help me a little bit later. I'm going to cut this off kind of at the top and the bottom of my journal. I might cut this off like down here a little bit. But I am going to attach this just to kind of get it going a little bit. And I'm going to wrap it around a little bit first because I think it looks cool that way. And now I'm just going to tie this with a square knot right up on there, trying to get it as tight as I can. So right over left, left over right. And that is the first tying off spot. It looks okay. I'm pretty happy with this. Okay. So before I sew this, I am going to need to kind of keep coming back into the middle of this. So I'm just going to put a paper clip here to kind of mark where the center is so I can grab it easily. So you don't have to watch me flip through the journal like every single time. So I'm going to go through this top hole on the inside and just guide my string. I'm going to keep this a little bit longer than I normally might like to, so I have room to keep the end on the inside while I am tying this around at the top. Look at this. I have this huge knotty part right where I'm trying to pull it through, and it's got a little bit of extra fuzz, and it's making it very difficult for me. Partially I think it just kind of peeled it up as I was pulling it through the tiny little hole of the needle. It kind of bunched up the yarn there. So oh, look at that. How much easier was that? Great. All right, so now I'm going to go around this 3 times like I did on the middle part when I attached that, and it's just going to pass it 3 times around, and then I'm going to pull it nice and snug so that the twig is going to be kind of attached right at where that hole is. Okay, I guess I only have to go 2 times because now I'm going to have a 4th time where I pass it back. Okay. I see what's happening here. Look at that. It's pulling here. So I'm going to hold this snug and tight. And it's going to be really important right before I tie this knot to make sure everything's tight. But right now, my biggest concern is trying to get back through this hole. I'm going to pull this down a little bit so that hopefully that holds the thread the twine that's already in this hole down, so I can get this kind of going up there without catching any part of that other twine. I'm not pulling really hard, I'm just kind of holding it down there on the inside. All right, we are, I think, about there. Great. So now I can make right over left, left over right, and I did check to make sure that everything's nice and snug. Now I am going to cut that twig down after I'm done. So there's that. I suppose if you wanted to, you could leave this as kind of long, but I'm not sure. It might cause problems later when you're trying to store this somewhere. I'm going to leave a little bit of an end there because, again, I think this adds kind of this natural rustic feeling to my journal. And that's what we look like. Now we just need to do the exact same thing on the bottom here. And I do think that these are a little bit smaller signatures. I'll count how many pages are in it when I'm done. I wouldn't want to do this, I think, with a huge journal. I think this is a good thing to do with kind of a little bit of a smaller journal. This one, I didn't get it in the straightest part. I should have moved this down a little bit. I'm going to see if I can make this kind of work with me somehow. It's going to bend the book a little bit. I think for this, that's going to be okay. But it's giving me an idea for the last journal. Which is why I didn't quite figure out what I was doing with all of these. So I'm going to cut another piece of twine. And again, I'm going to leave it a little bit long. That was probably longer than I really needed. Even making it a little bit long. I'm going to leave it a little bit long on the longer side to make my life easier. I am going to leave this chunky, weird end because this is twine and it's all kind of interesting because it's not very uniform. And I don't like that end, so I'm going to use this end and because it's got a pretty nice stretch of not too bulky. And I'm not going to pull that farther through this needle than I really have to. Okay, so now I'm going to go in through the bottom like I did with the top and just repeat this. Hopefully that's enough. Hopefully this will help us like it did the last time. See how much easier that was with the paper clip there? You can flip right to it. Alright. Oh, yep. It's all about making sure that that place where the thread is bending is nice and flat for you. I did cut this piece like probably, I wanted it long, but this is probably way longer than it needed to be. So how I'm going to do this is not super straight as you saw, so I'm just going to kind of let it roll up over on this end so that it's kind of on top of the book, and I think that's going to be okay. You can always redo it if it's not. These twigs are absolutely gorgeous. They kind of have some lichens growing on them that are kind of blue-green, so they really, really match the colors in this journal. And I just picked them up out of my yard. They'd been blown down out of the trees. So this was kind of an easy and fun thing for me. And it's probably why I didn't finish this journal before, is when I made the signatures, they were all, it was in the winter and it was cold and I was living in an apartment and I didn't have a yard. So, you know, this is the season for this. And now I'll have this beautiful nature journal that kind of spans little bit of time for me. Let's move that out of the way. And again, I'm pulling this tab up to pull not only that string where I went out of the way, but hopefully the place where I had originally done the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, because I don't want to get those tangled. Okay, now I should be able to pull this all tight from the inside, hopefully, just to get that stick really attached where I want it. It's not going to move around too much. Okay, I think it's all tight. A little bit of a tug, not too much. I don't want to rip my paper, but I'm going to go right over left, and then left over right. Make my square knot. That should be nice and secure, and I have my first signature done. Now I could okay, almost done. Let's look at this. Let's make sure that everything's still moving. I have these are for bonsai. I got them for my partner, and I have stolen his things because I can't find my pruning shears right at this moment. So I'm just going to cut this with this, but I think you could probably easier use a pair of pruning shears. And I'm just going to cut that off. That made a really nice cut. Okay. And I'm going to cut it off again near the bottom, probably just a little bit on the inside. Again, you can leave these longer, but I just feel like they're going to be easier to store like that. All right. So now let's look through our book and see what it looks like. I am going to have to really clean up a little bit. You could put some cute little leaf charms or something on here if you wanted to, or you could just cut them off a little bit shorter, but you can leave them. Okay, so this is my journal, and it's going to look like this. So I'll definitely have the ability to work in this and put in all of my little leaves and maybe make some leaf prints and things like that to include in this journal. And it is absolutely stunning just the way it is as well. I can use this to do maybe a little bit writing about where I find things, and I think it's really pretty with the twig on it, and it's seeming to work really well. Let's look and see how many pages I included in this. I have been making really big journals and thinking about how can I fit 200 pages into my journals, and now I'm trying to decorate these journals, and they have like 200 pages, and I've been really trying to slowly decrease the amount of pages because 200 is a lot, and I don't necessarily want to work in a journal. I want to have a new journal every once in a while. If I have 200 pages, I can't do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, oh my, 13, 14 pages. So those are certainly going to be, because remember, you can go 14 times 4 is going to be 56 pages in this journal, and I might, like this partial page, I might connect to here and make this like a belly band or something. So, but I think 56 pages for just storing like, you know, pressed flowers and leaves and things, and writing about maybe what I've been doing, I think is a great size for a journal. So I'm pretty happy about this. I like how this is attached, and kind of gives it some character, and it seems to be working as far as binding for the book. So, I mean, it is in there, but I don't think it's going to like really make it difficult for me to work in this book. So, pretty happy about that. So, that's one way, is to just attach this along the edge, and it works great. Now, I have a second way. So, let's get that worked out. So, for the second binding that I want to try, I'm basically going to do a binding, and these probably have a name, where you do a binding along this edge, and so it will, and so, exactly, and so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I will punch holes to sew through here, and I'm going to punch a series of holes and make a blanket, essentially a blanket stitch going down the side. And so then, and that will wrap around the stick and effectively stitch it to here. Now, I suppose I could just do a part of this stick, and I might go ahead and just do, you know, a piece of this stick here. I might do it that way instead of, so it's only attached like here instead of the whole way down, which I think will be kind of cool. You could do the whole side, but I'm thinking that it might be kind of fun to just, I haven't decided which of these sticks to add yet. But I think it will be fun to just kind of have it be attached to a part of this, and this stick I think is not straight enough in any of its spots to actually attach. I might be sent back out into the cold and the dark here tonight to get a piece of stick that will work. I think that this is probably the best thing. This is kind of a little bit bent, but I think it's actually my best bet. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this off now. And I think I'm just going to try and attach it where this paper bag is, I think, is what I am going to do for this particular signature, this particular book. Because remember, this is going to leave us with like, what, a 56 page? I assume these are all the same book, which is plenty big enough for this. And I'm very proud of myself for having basically cut down the size of my books by like about a quarter, because I used to always only be happy if they had like 400 pages or so. But expecting yourself to make like a 400-page book is kind of a lot. So where did I put my, oh, I got rid of my stick. Bring that back. That was the piece we wanted. So this is the piece I wanted, and depending on how you look at this, it might look very straight here, but it's actually kind of bent there. And I definitely want this very interesting lichens to be probably, you know, on the front and then the side of the stick where they're really visible, which is going to be hard given that's where it's really, it's going to have to go like that. It has to go like that. But this looks so great with this book. Okay, so I'm just going to punch a series of holes that I can sew through, and is what I do want to do is I want to know where this stick, how far it's going to be. And so I can, and then I'm just gonna eyeball these. So what I need is a pencil. Do I have a pencil? No, of course I don't. I do have, we're gonna use this. I just want to know roughly where the top and the bottom is. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to judge about halfway through here, and I'm going to pull out my crocodile. I want something, the other thing I should do, let's just check and make sure. What I'm checking for is really, I think I had some dictionary pages that were, like there's the dictionary page, and I just want to make sure that that anything in here that is directional is going the right direction, if that makes sense. That those dictionary pages that have writing on them are all facing right side up, because I want this to be the bottom, because I feel like, and I do think that one of these signatures, when I flipped through it earlier, was not like that. Okay, in case it makes a difference, it will make a difference. It will absolutely 100% make a difference. And then I just want to make sure that all of my pages and stuff seem to be like tucked all the way in as close as they can get to the inside of here, so that they all get punched. And now we are going to find the larger of the two holes on my crocodile, and so it just says inch and up. There we go. So we have 1/8 of an inch punch here, and this one is 3/16. So this one is a little bit bigger, and what we're going to do is we just kind of want to, we know that's the top and the bottom of this stick, so we're going to want to come down enough for that to be okay, but we're just going to eyeball this and punch some holes, and hopefully this will go in. Okay, so I want to eyeball so I'm right around in the halfway point. And I'm going to go in far enough that I am going to both grab both of those things, and they're not going to rip out too much. I could, and maybe I should be measuring this, but also I feel like if it's not perfect, that I'm perfectly fine with that. So that's where the hole is, and I'm kind of lining it up actually with this edge of this, so I'm down below where that is, so that it's not, so I'll have room to tie my string on. Okay, there we go. You can measure this, like I said. I am perfectly fine to not measure. And then I'm just going to go about halfway through, halfway between those, and then halfway between those. And that's how I'm measuring, right? So it'll be nice and relatively even, while not being exactly even. Okay? Like those two are definitely closer together. These are farther apart. It's all good. Okay. It's all good. And so I can see the line is here, and I'm just, again, kind of lining it up with this, the side of this, so that we stuck? Because it didn't go all the way through that time. Okay. And then I'll gauge about the center of those. And then between those. And then this paper bag on the top of here kind of looks almost like leather. It's pretty cool. Okay, so I have some holes poked here. Okay. All right, so I have punched my holes and I have my stick, and I'm going to attach my stick so that these lichens are on the front and on the side here of my notebook, so that I have that on the front because they're very pretty, and the back of the stick is just kind of plain. So I definitely want to like get this where everybody can see it. And so actually, I mean, I think it's gonna be better the other way. Definitely better to do it this way. Okay, so there's a top and a bottom to my stick, apparently. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm going to wrap this, and I'm gonna leave enough tail that I can tie this off, but I'm gonna just tie this to my stick to begin with. So I just want to wrap this like, I mean, it's up to you, but I do want to be near the top because I have measured this to be near the top. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap it around, and then I'm just gonna make a square knot to tie this twig to the top of my journal. Right over left, left over right, and that should put that nice and secure. Okay, now is what I want is for this next part, I need to have the thread coming up through this hole. But I also want to wrap around here. So I'm just going to go in through the back. And this top hole is just a little bit different than the rest of the holes. And I'm hoping that I should be able to do this without a needle, assuming I don't mess my signature up too much. Okay, and then I'm just gonna go through this. So I do want to have this wrapped around here. So I'm gonna go just around one more time. And I am gonna go underneath where this, I'm going underneath so that I'm going underneath where this is already attached. Okay. And wrap this through this top hole one more time. And then I'll make sure everything's tight. And I am, in fact, going to get my needle out and see if I can get it. I just think it's going to be easier for me to have the needle to do this. So now I am going to come back up here. I'm just going to wrap this through one more time. Ooh, carefully, because do you see how it got all tangled? Because I'm not paying attention. Okay. Patiently, patiently. We're gonna go through this. Okay. Perfect. Okay. I feel like hopefully that is the hardest part of this process. Okay. So now in order to do this, we're going to go back through the second hole. Easy peasy. And then all we have to do, pull that. Okay. And we're on the outside of our twig, and we're going to go back through that first stitch, just through the stitch. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then we'll go down to the next hole. And that's basically it until you get to the last hole. Okay. And so we're making that blanket stitch. We'll go through the second stitch from the second to the third hole there. Okay, and you might want to pull it a little bit tight. There we go. Okay. And then, and I'm just adjusting this so it's going along the side of the book. And now I'm going into the fourth hole. And into that stitch. It's just the same thing we've been doing. So we can go back in. Okay. We come back around. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this around the end of my stick, and I'm going to tie it off with a knot. On the back. And then that is done. Oops. I should have my partner tie this off and use his all his Boy Scout skills here. I think he thinks he ties better knots than me. He does tie better knots than me, let's just be honest. He really does. Mine are kind of makeshift knots. He actually ties proper knots. All right. So that is the second knot, which I think is pretty cool. This looks like something you made at summer camp. So that is the second way that I came up with to attach these to a stick. And so the downside of this is that, like, when you open this, it is going to take up, it's just going to kind of open around the stick. But these pages, I mean, this is a fairly large journal, so I don't really mind. I think that the trade-off for having this twine and the stick and how cool this looks is really it's a good trade-off for me, at least. So I like this a lot. So those are the two ways that I came up with. I am going to leave off, I still have this one last journal. I haven't really decided. I will go ahead and figure out which of these two ways I might want to bind this last signature. I do kind of suppose that the other thing I could do is I could leave this as just a blank signature, and if I am decorating these other two signatures and I need more paper for making ephemera or something, I could use that for this. But I might go ahead and just bind this together and using one of these two methods, depending on which one I decide I like better. So I have that. But this is great. And it looks really cool on the inside too, just as the lacing looks really neat. I like it a lot. So if you want to try this, I think it's really cool. I'll have to do a tutorial on how I made these pages, just because, well, I think it'll be good because I don't necessarily really remember how I made these pages. I remember having everything spread out like all over the floor everywhere, and layers of paper down to protect the floor from getting spray and stuff all over it. A lot of fun. Super cool. I think I did sprays, and then I did paint, and then I flicked paint in like white and metallic. This is like a blue metallic watercolor, and I think that pretty much covered it. Super fun, super fun. And then this one would be just like, this is the Distress Oxide from Tim Holtz, mixed with other paints and inks. So yeah, there's this one, and this was the first one we did, which is just a 3-hole pamphlet stitch with this attached through that hole, and this one is just attached through the 3 after the fact, and this one was attached to where the pamphlet stitch is coming out. So very fun, very cool. I look forward to filling these with some fun things. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. I'm so grateful to each and every person who has subscribed to my channel. I am at 217 subscribers at the time that I'm filming this, and I am so grateful for each and every one of you. If you see this and you like this content, I love putting this content out, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and come back and visit with me at my craft desk. And I will see you next time, and until then, stitch scrappily and scrap happily. Bye.